Hello and welcome back to That Old Shop. My name is Mike Scott. Today I'm going to be covering more smaller machines, benchtop machines, support type of machines that somebody might have in their general kind of shop. What I have here is a couple of drill presses. This is an Atlas built. Atlas, I believe, was in Michigan originally. Atlas built a Craftsman drill press from the late 1940s, early 50s possibly. Craftsman badge, Atlas made them for Sears, and Sears had them put Craftsman, the Craftsman name on there, Craftsman name plates and whatnot. What I did with this one is put a three-phase motor on it so I could put a VFD on there. And that gives me variable speed. Really good for drilling larger holes. You can slow down the drill. Also, you see on here is another drill press table. Matches this one here. And I just put that on there. It just goes right on the column, just like this drill press table. And that's just good to put tools on. Put drills on, your chuck key. I have a chip brush hanging from the machine right there. And I use this for both machines. So. This one here is a Lancelier sensitive drill press. This is really good for running the drill really fast for smaller holes. I got this thing pretty cheap. I believe I paid $5 for this machine. All I did, of course, was clean it up and change the cord on it. I had to make this plate for the electrical box that was missing. So, but this is a nice stop system right here. This rod is adjustable up and down. It's got a fine adjustment here where you can fine adjust your stop right there. It's only got a single handle on it. And it's set at its slowest speed right now. I'll probably end up putting a three-phase motor on this with a VFD as well, just to have the variable speed. But this, like that drill press used to be originally when it was made, it just had this has a step pulley system just like that. It used to have a step pulley system, and you'd have to loosen the motor mount up and move the belt around to different steps on the pulleys to change the speeds. Moving around to give you a close-up of this machine and the control of the VFD. It is right here, and you can just, I have it set at the fastest speed already. You just hit start, or run in this case. It brings it right up to its previous setting. And drop it down. Once it starts to go, it really slows down. And that's pretty slow. That's good, like I said, for large drills and chamfering holes. I often get asked, how do you hold things? How do you clamp things down to the drill press? Well, this is one of the ways right here. This is a drill press vise. And one way you can hold it down is a system like this. This is a Chinese knockoff, but I'm pretty sure Vice Grip makes one. This is just a Vice Grip operation there. You can move this around, get your piece underneath there, and just clamp it down like that. This loosens up and moves around as well. I have all kinds of adjustments there. You can use this right on, if you didn't have a small piece that was going to go in a vise, you had a larger piece, I should say, you can sometimes just clamp it down with that. Looking down here on the bench, there's another vise here, a different type of vise. This is, some people call these a speed vise. It has an unusual way of moving the jaw. You can lift the screw up like that out of this block. It has the threads cut in it. And you can just move the movable jaw back and forth. drop it down, and tightens up. The threads are cut on an angle as such that you can lift it out of there, drop it down, and it'll still catch, and it holds them very firmly. That's that vise. Moving over here to this machine, the sensitive drill press again. This is a popular type of drill press vise. It's called an angle vise. You can set it at any kind of angle there. Tighten up the bolts and it'll hold it there. Of course, you got to clamp it down. You can use that vice grip type tool. If this vise was on there, you could use that vice grip type holding device to clamp this down, or just use the bolts on that one as well, or a C-clamp, anything like that. And then sometimes when you have a larger piece, the vise, drill press vise would just be in the way. That can be taken off, something like this. This was your piece. You could then drill holes in it, move it around. Sometimes just holding it down, C-clamping it down. Or sometimes just small pieces that are too awkward to clamp in the drill press vise. You can just set on here and try to hold them down with your fingers or clamp them down and drill through, and with small thin pieces, drill through the piece into the wood, and it would support the hole. That's what that's for. You can see I used a whole saw with this piece. Here's another view of the second drill press table. You can see it's got the same locking mechanism as the bottom drill press table. It just gets, you have to pull the head off the column, slide this on there, and you can spin it around or wherever you want. Get it back where I had it. A little bit of a hassle. I'll back you up. But you can see how that's a space saver. This is over the disc sander, which I'll show you next. Moving on to this disc sander. I bought this pretty reasonably as well. Had to do some work to it, of course. You can see I had to work on the electrical. I had to put a plate on there. This was all bent up. This cover here on the end of the motor, that was pretty bent up. And the hub that holds this disc on was bent. The disc wasn't bent, because that's hardened steel, but the hub was bent. So I had to straighten that as best I could and put that in the lathe and take a cut across the face of that. And that's what I got after doing that work. And of course, cleaned it up and painted it. I don't believe I changed the bearings in this motor. I just re-greased them. Put a light on there. Bob's your uncle, as they say. I use this mainly for metals, but as you can see, judging by how loaded up the wheel is, I had to use it for some wood, because my wood Taiwan one was down at the time. So I didn't say it already, but this is a Rockwell. This is probably, I don't recall what the age of this one was. Early 70s, I want to say. Rockwell. This has, here's the hub that I was talking about earlier. There is a piece that goes on here, another shroud piece. I don't have that. It's better for dust collecting. I don't have a dust collector on this. But I think I paid like, I don't know, 25 bucks for this thing. I've been pretty happy with it. Miter gauge here is a Craftsman. It's not a Rockwell, so it's not the original ones in the machine, but it serves the purpose. I sharpen my chisels and different things like that on here. This is one of my benchtop machines that's a work in progress. This is a 10-inch bench grinder. This dates back to around the wartime, World War II time. I don't recall the manufacturer on this. I know I posted this elsewhere online and mentioned that, but when I get back to this machine, I'll get that information and provide all that. With each machine, when I get back to it and get to finishing it up, I'll provide a lot more information. But I have one of the tool rests. I need to get another one, or maybe a knife grinder. There was a knife grinder that came with it with one side, but it was pretty abused. I'd have to do a lot of welding and grinding and to try to maybe bring that thing back. But this thing weighs 130 pounds, so it's a pretty hefty benchtop machine. Not really a benchtop machine, but something that I picked up also very reasonably, but it wasn't working. And I eventually got the drill to run by putting a magnet on the outside of the magnetic base, and that enabled the drill to run. But I cannot get the magnet to energize. I've taken it all apart. It's a sealed magnet. I had a friend of mine that said, well, maybe it's just from condensation over the years. The magnets, they aren't flipping, aren't able to move. The little bit that they do move when it's energized, and he suggested just whacking it with a rubber mallet. I did that for quite a while. That did not help at all. When I was getting rid of a lot of my woodworking machines, I had a dust collector up for sale, and somebody came to pick it up and was actually the chief engineer. Here's his card from Milwaukee Tools. And he said, oh yeah, we'll be able to help you out with that and get you some parts, whatever you need for it. Just send me an email. Well, I sent him a couple of emails, so he's never returned any of them. So Steve, if you're out there, what's up, man? I could use some help with this. Another benchtop machine. I've mentioned these in my intro video. I thought I'd elaborate a little bit more on these. They're bench grinders that I took the guards off on, so I'm going to have these wire wheels on here that I can get at them from all directions to try to clean up parts and bits and pieces from machines. That's what I mainly use these for. So I have brass wire wheels on here now. This one's a really fine one. You can see that's just, see how easy I can move that. This one's a little more stout, stiffer. It works great for cleaning up softer things, especially threads. Really gets down in there. And it puts kind of a nice finish on like handles and things like that. So that works out pretty well. This is another grinder, bench grinder that I have steel wheels on. Here again, I took off the guards so I could have better access. Get the parts in there, around there. Get them cleaned up. That one over there was a Skill. This is a Stanley badged anyway. I don't recall the manufacturer on these. The Stanley electric tools, but I know there's probably, I used to get into the original manufacturers and things more than I am now. But these grinders are probably 1950s vintage, as is the next one I'm going to show you. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this one over here, I have two different stiffness, I guess, or coarseness of steel wire wheels on this grinder here. This one, of course, I have the stones on here, coarser one and a finer one. You can see it's pretty loaded up. I was grinding some soft stuff in there. But I have the eye shields even for this one, and the guards. I have the guards still on this side over here. Both the tool rests, of course. This I drove quite a ways to get this. I don't usually do that for such a small machine. But I was pretty interested in the Miller's Falls badge tools for a while there, and so I kind of really wanted this one. And it was a complete machine. It had the eye shields. So, but I don't use the eye shields because they're just in my way a lot. They block the light. Kind of way makes it more dangerous for me. I'll elaborate a little bit more on these three bench vises here. This is a 6-inch Charles Parker stationary jaws, stationary base. I actually liked the stationary bases more than the swivel bases, for the reason that lots of times the swivel bases just don't lock very well. So if you need to really crank on something, they're not very useful. But for smaller items that you don't have to crank on very hard, they work out good because you can position the vise in a way that's just easier for you to work at it on the piece. This one here is a Prentice. This one you just pull up this little knob. Got some set holes there and can move it to. That's pretty nice. It also has a swivel rear jaw. I had to make this pin. The pin wasn't with it. This I actually paid a little bit of money for that, more than I usually pay, because it was a complete vise. It had, other than this pin here, I think there was something in there, but it was broken or wasn't the original working piece or something. But it was in decent shape. Guy was a real nice guy. I bought it from him, so I'm happy with that purchase. The Parker, I paid a pretty reasonable price for this one here, for such a large vise. And I probably use this one more than the Prentice. Probably use the larger one more. This small one over here is a Peerless, also a stationary base. This one I probably still use more than the Prentice, just because I don't want to mess up the Prentice jaws when I'm working on something. When I'm cutting things, I need to work close to the top of the jaws. I'd rather mess up this vise than this vise here. These two little machines are actually called dental lathes. They're used for making dentures. They use them in the back room of the dentist's office. I had a daughter or I have a daughter, my youngest daughter, who used to be a dental assistant in a dental office. So if I would have thought ahead of time and talked to her, she probably could have located some of these for me. And actually, after she left the dental office, she worked for a dental supplier that supplied tools and equipment. And I probably could have got some machines that, they were changing out and they didn't want them anymore, or they wanted the newest one or something like that. So I never really made those connections. But I bought these all individually, and I have a third one that's already packed away in a crate to get moved for the big move to the bigger, to the more rural home with a larger shop, where I can set these up in a row and have more of a polishing station. This one I actually bought from the dentist was closing his office and just didn't want to deal with them anymore. He was selling everything. He was selling his x-ray equipment. He was selling everything. So that's probably the newest one, the best condition one that I own. This one's in pretty good shape. Just the base is a little not as clean looking, but I got all kinds of wheels and polishing, felt attachments, and a nice Albright chalk, and just all kinds of things with this. So that was a really good deal. Like I said, I have a third one. It's probably an older one. It's probably in the worst shape out of the three. Like I say, I already have that packed away. I haven't really used these much just because I don't have them set up. Just don't have the room. A couple of them I have, they have these shrouds for them too, for catching all the material that would come off the dentures, say. I guess if I had some messy polishing things, I would use them. And some of them are actually, the shrouds have lights in them. But they're a separate item. They're just aluminum. They set on the bench just around it so you can, you know, take it out and clean it and move it around and all that kind of thing. So I hope to put those into use in the new and larger shop. Just a couple of things I'll touch on here. For metalworking machines, it's more important to have a more climate controlled environment for them to be in, especially when you get into the machine tools like lathes and mills and you know, surface grinders, things like that. And one way I do that here in this little shop is to try to control the humidity, for one thing, because this is a smaller shop, 16 by 24, a little over 300 square feet, is a dehumidifier. I have a window air conditioner that I put in the summertime to bring the temperatures down, but say I'm in a more northern climate now. But in spring and fall, when you have those cooler days and they're damp, they're rainy, that works out for taking the dampness out of the air, and it throws a little heat into the room. So that's very useful. I pick those up on the curb lots of times. They just need to be cleaned, a new plug put on it or something like that. So I've never bought one of those new. This thing right here is an ozone generator. Because of my time, the 20 years I spent in manufacturing, working around a lot of chemicals, I'm kind of chemical sensitive, so whenever I'm doing some cleaning, like say in the winter time and it's more enclosed, I don't want to open up the windows or the doors. Cleaning, finishing, painting, things like that, I'll do some painting and then run this. Ozone generators have kind of got a bad rap because people just run them too high, and it can be not a good thing for your health if you're exposed to ozone for a long period of time. I used to help out this one contractor when I did construction work, and we were doing some remodeling work in this one home, and there was an older lady who was living with her father, and they both were smokers. And she had bought, because she was fearful, believe it or not, of secondhand smoke from all the smoking that her father did. But she smoked as well. Well, when we got there the first day, we went in the house and we couldn't even hardly breathe. They had this ozone generator running. She had gotten this thing because of her father smoking, and she just had that thing cranking. And we had to just open up windows and, air it out some. Funny thing about that whole story, when she was out there telling us about her father and the secondhand smoke and complaining about that whole situation, she was standing there smoking a cigarette. I just thought that was the funniest thing. But this I didn't find on the curb. This is something I bought at a garage sale or restore or something. This is an older model. This is a Living Air. So it has a fan setting and has a purifier setting. That's the ozone, the strength of the ozone. So I run that probably 50% or lower and have the fan cranking all the way, moving a lot of air with the ozone, the purifier knob set 50% or lower. And of course I'll leave the door open, for an extended period of time when I'm coming and going, checking on the finish or whatever, to help get it aired out as well. So ozone is actually can kind of be a good thing for you, because after thunderstorms, that nice clean smell, that's from the lightning. That's ozone. That's the lightning creating ozone in the atmosphere. So it's not a totally bad thing. It's just like anything in moderation. In my intro video, I had mentioned that I was going to be featuring some of this stuff here, if you know what these go with, some bang bang items. I decided to spin that all off and into another channel. So I was kind of struggling with getting that set up, and it's got a name on it right now, but I gotta wait like 12 more days or something to change the name to get a more appropriate name for that channel. So that stuff will be featured on there. What I wanted to talk about here was this die cart. This is a Big Joe brand of die cart. This I got pretty reasonable, I think, because its condition. It didn't have the plate on it. The plate I had gotten at a garage sale, and it's a hardened plate. I'll take these off. There. So this plate just lifts off, and that's how they are from the manufacturer. They're much thinner though. I used to use these Big Joes when I worked in manufacturing, although they were normally a narrower unit and not a unit quite as tall. And I would have rather have had that for this smaller shop, but this will come in handy in the larger shop because it's wider and taller. It will help me to get things down from up on shelves, help me to use the vertical space in the shop for storage. Give you a shot from the business end, as they say. It's electric. It works off a deep cycle battery. I just happen to have a trolling motor battery that I put in there, and it serves my purpose for what I use it for. So it has an electric pump that operates, works the hydraulics. Hydraulic oil is what actually moves the ram and lifts it up and down. Goes down pretty fast. The hardest part was trying to get through the door. It's too tall for my man door, so my son-in-law and I had to, of course we took the forks off it and everything, try to make it as light as can be, but we just tipped it and kind of rolled it in on an angle and set it back up. We lost a little hydraulic oil doing that, but that was it. A little bit more of a shot of the Big Joe. It's 34 inches wide and it's 8 feet tall to the top of the mast. And it's 82 inches. I got it run all the way as high as it'll go, and it's 82 inches to the forks there. So that's the Big Joe. So that's about it. That's about all I have for you guys this time. A lot of smaller stuff, smaller machines, smaller support equipment, that kind of thing. I'll be glad to show you more as things progress, as we move, get the machines more completed in their new home and new locations and wired up. We'll go over some of that. Show you what I'm doing there. In the meantime, I'll show you, how the machines are going to be moved. Excuse me. How they're going to move, how we're going to accomplish that. So I'll take you along for that ride as well. But until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and comment. See ya.